Hello everyone, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be looking at how we can make our own English resume. So here in Japan, where I am currently based, many jobs, companies, universities will have what's called a standardized form, which means that every person, every candidate will have to fill out exactly the same paperwork. But in the UK and many other English-speaking countries, you'll need to make your own resume. Now, the design, the layout, it might change, but there are some very key points that you must think about when you're making your resume. And today, we're going to go through those one by one. There'll be a nice, helpful checklist for you to look at, and I'll make this a PDF worksheet that you can download as well. So please look in the description below and you can find this worksheet for you to tick off by yourself. So there are different aspects we're going to be looking at. First up, we've got personal details or contact details. Next up, possibly the most difficult section, the objective. Your personal objective. Then we've got work experience, education. Then we've got qualifications, which might be outside of your education. Skills, any skills you might have. And last up, your references. So all of these points are very, very important, and we're going to skip through them one by one, and hopefully you can make your own perfect English resume at the end of it. So the first step on our checklist is the personal and contact details. So contact details, really easy. So just write down your name and make sure you write your name in a language that the person reading your resume can understand. And then for your contact details, that might be telephone, mobile phone, email. Maybe you have a web page you can forward the person to. Maybe you still use fax. I don't know. A fax might be great as well. So contact details, that needs to go at the top of the page and make it nice and big and clear and easy to read. Next up, we're still on the first step, but this is a bit of a complicated section. This is your personal details. So sometimes on these forms you might have to fill in your age, your gender, and also attach a photograph of yourself. So it's very important that you check with your employer to see if this information is relevant. Sometimes they would not want to know. So that's why I've put on the checklist maybe your age and a photograph as well. So you may be wondering why it is a little bit controversial to put in this information, and it's simply because the employer consciously or maybe subconsciously might discriminate against you because of one of those three reasons. Maybe they might look at a picture of me, for example, and be like, oh, he's going bald, he's got no hair, he must be very old, and we don't want any more old people working at our company. So that is a form of discrimination, and obviously that's not acceptable. And on a more serious note, I don't think there'll be many people doing it on someone's hairline, but it could be about age, gender, or race. And companies, I hope, would want to avoid such discrimination, and therefore they don't always ask for this information. So just check with your employer, or potential employer I should say, to see if this information is relevant. Again, in Japan we often put in this information. That's fine, but just make sure that the company that you are applying for needs that information. Okay, step 2 is the objective. And like I said at the beginning of the video, this is possibly the most difficult section on the resume to fill out. So for the objective, this is kind of like your first impression. You can only make a first impression once, as they say, and this is it. So in this short section, you need to sum up, you need to summarize who you are, why you want this position, why this position is right for you, and where you see yourself in the future. So it needs to tell the person about your personality, your work ethic, and how much you fit into this role that they are currently looking for. So it can be very difficult. I will upload an example of a CV that you can look at, but just be honest, be energetic, and don't be embarrassed to really sell yourself. Think about what makes you a good employee. Are you hardworking? Are you always on time? Are you very ambitious or energetic? Okay? Don't be too humble in this section. Tell them why you are a good candidate and why you are a good fit for this position. So, section 3 is the work experience section of the resume. And what you need to put down here, very simply, is list where you have worked. So normally would start writing the company name first, next up the position you held at that company, and last up you'd write down the dates that you were there. If you're still working there, put down the date you started and then a little squiggly line and then just say to present. That just lets your employer know that you're still working there. So that's the easy bit. Underneath that, you also need to write down your responsibilities or your duties at this job. What were you doing there? Were you responsible for customer care, or was it more, filling shelves, like stock management, you can say. So think about what your job entailed, what were you good at, and was there anything special about this job? Was there anything unique? So there are 2 points here that I'd like you to keep in mind. First up, if you have not had any jobs in the past, if you have not had a part-time or full-time job up until now, that's fine. But think about, have you done any volunteer work? Or have you done any extracurricular activities at school or university? So, for example, did you help with open day, or have you been in charge of organizing any school trips? So anything like this could count as work experience. This shows that you can be responsible. Second up, try and craft your experience to the position you are applying for. Now, you shouldn't lie. Don't lie about your jobs. But try and think about the skills you learnt in that position and how that is connected to the job you want. So I've got a very simple example here for you. So this was my first ever part-time job. When I was 12, I was a paper boy, or obviously you could be a paper girl. So you might be thinking, how is this relevant to any position I might want? And to be honest, most of the time a job like this wouldn't be. This is just an example for you to think about. But imagine that the person is hoping to get one of these 2 jobs. One of them is to work in an office as a receptionist, and the other one is to work outside as a builder. So there are some skills as a paper boy or paper girl that would be connected to both of these jobs. For example, time management is something that's important for almost every job. You can't be late for your shift. You have to know how to manage your time. And as a paper boy or paper girl, that's also very important. People want their morning papers in the morning. You can't do it in the afternoon. Next up, multitasking. You might need to do multiple things at once as a paper boy or paper girl. And again, that's a skill that is important to both of these positions. So the last one here is problem solving. So our work, our jobs never go completely smoothly. Something will always go wrong. Something bad will happen. The problems aren't really what our employers focus on. It's how we solve them, what we do to fix these problems. Because sometimes it's out of our control if something goes wrong. And that is a skill that is relevant for almost every position. So part-time jobs, like delivering newspapers, can still be relevant to other jobs that may seem very, very different. But looking at the receptionist position, are there any skills we learnt delivering newspapers that are specifically good for an application as a receptionist? So here there are just 3 small ideas. First up, customer service. As a receptionist, you're going to be facing the public all the time. You're the first point of contact for many of the people interacting with this business. And if you're delivering newspapers, you have to deal with the customers when you see them in the morning. The demeanor you have, your attitude, that is a skill that can be transferred from one position to the next. Next up, dealing with complaints. Some things might go wrong. You know, as we said, there are problems, problem solving. But dealing with complaints, they're coming directly from the customers. Maybe as a paperboy, you ripped the newspaper or it got wet in the rain. How do you deal with those complaints? Being told off? It's not fun. We don't like that experience, right? But how we handle those complaints is very important. And it's a really unique skill that not everyone has. So if you've learnt that in your part-time job, please mention it in your resume. And last up, handling money. So full disclaimer here, I didn't handle money when I was a newspaper delivery guy, but some people have to. They have to get the money off of the customers. And again, that shows you're trustworthy, that shows that you can interact with customers, and also shows that you can, calculate quickly on the fly. So all of these skills are from a job which we might think is not connected at all to being a receptionist. Now, on the other scale, being a builder is very different to being a receptionist, but there are some skills that could carry over. So if you're delivering newspapers every day, you're riding a bicycle, you're carrying a heavy bag filled up with newspapers, so it is physically demanding. Your body is going through a lot, which would be very helpful for a builder who also has to do a lot of physical work. Also, you'll be working outside. If it's raining, if it's snowing, you still need to deliver those newspapers. And, showing that resilience, that hard work, that's a great skill to show off. And lastly, when you're delivering newspapers, you're out by yourself. You don't have a manager with you. You're working individually, which again is a really important skill to think about, to have. Okay? So no matter what your part-time job might have been, there should be some responsibilities, some duties that you had that could really help your application this time around as well. So the next section is your education. So for this, please write down the name of the school that you went to, the years that you attended the school, the subjects that you took, and last up, the grades that you got for each of those subjects. So you don't need to go back to like shogako, you don't need to go back to your elementary school, but maybe your junior high school tests, if you excelled at those, that might be good if you included those. High school diplomas, very very good. University degrees, any vocational degrees, you can put down here in your education section. So this one's nice and simple, but just be sure everything is accurate. It's very important that you don't lie, even by accident here. So be careful, please check all the details are correct. So the next section might seem quite similar to education, but it is a little bit different. This is looking at your qualifications and achievements. So maybe you could mention your TOEIC or TOEFL score if you've taken a test. For example, that might be really helpful here. Or maybe you were awarded a certificate at school. If so, give details about what the certificate was, when and why you were given it. Okay, so for example, for me, I went to a conference back in 2018 and I was awarded a certificate for giving the best oral presentation, which I'm obviously very proud of, and I would always put that on my resume. So no matter how you got this certificate, if it is connected to the position you are applying for, I would highly recommend that you put it in this section. So we're nearly finished. The next one is your skills section. So again, make sure that this is connected to the job you are applying for. If you can carry 100 kilograms, that might not be a skill that is relevant to the job you're applying for. So just make sure these skills are connected to the job that you are applying for. But they could include the languages that you speak. So I would put down I'm fluent in English and maybe conversational Japanese. So put down the languages that you can speak, and if possible, write down your level as well. It might be a good idea to list any software that you can use. If you're familiar with Windows or Mac or anything in between, list it down here. It could be something more specific. If you know how to do video editing or music software or photography, list those skills here if they are connected to the job that you are applying for. And lastly, maybe you're really good at technology. Many positions will use very specific, advanced technology. And if you are already skilled in that technology, you'll stand a much better chance of being picked for the position. So the last one today, these are your references. So many positions will ask for a reference. And what a reference is, it's basically a person that they can contact, and that person will then confirm that you are a good worker or you have the potential to be a good worker. So make sure you write down their name and contact information. But it's very important, very, very important that you ask the person before you write them down as a reference. If you don't do that, the employer will ring your reference. They'll say, "Do you know Adam Miller?" And they'll be like, "Adam Miller? Who's that?" They might have forgotten you. They might not know what's going on. So step one here, ask the person. Make sure they're happy to be your reference. After that, write down their contact details so the employer can contact them. If they have a written reference instead, you can include that. But just make sure that it is a teacher, a boss, a colleague, or someone in a position of authority. It can't be your mother, for example, because she will just say lovely things about you. Or it can't be your best friend, because again, it might not be that professional. Okay, so that is how we can make a perfect English resume. Of course, this is quite a simple structure. It won't work for every position. For example, for an academic job that I might apply for, I would have to write down details of any peer-reviewed papers I'd written or conferences I had attended. But for most positions, this resume would be absolutely fine. So what I'll do is, down in the description below, I will put up a link which you can follow so you can download the checklist, and hopefully you can make your own perfect resume. And if you've got any questions whatsoever, please write them below. If you want to write them in Japanese, I'll try and reply, but I'll probably do so in English just to get you practicing a little bit more. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I'll get you some more videos like this very, very soon. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you very much.